Welcome to the Midweek Mailbag. We're back doing our Midweek Mailbag thing again here on the Pride of Detroit podcast feed. You can always find us anywhere on your podcast feed. YouTube, not YouTube. What are some podcasts? Apple Podcasts, that's YouTube. One. We're currently live on YouTube. That is true. We're currently live on Twitch as well. But if you're listening, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, y'all know. I don't need to tell you where to get podcasts. My name is Jeremy Reisman, by the way. I'm the producer over at prideofdetroit.com, your host for the Midweek Mailbag, but just one of them because there's two of us. I can't possibly carry an entire Lions mailbag by myself. So we're bringing in our second co-host, the guy who is yet to be back on the podcast feed, but now is walking back in with his head held high triumphantly. He is the managing editor of Pride of Detroit. He is at Erik Schlitt on Twitter. Erik Schlitt, how we doing, buddy?
Hey, buddy. I'm second time on the stream, which is nice, but first time on the podcast feed. I got to witness a miraculous event last night of you fulfilling some of the activities that you had committed to during the Movember campaign, where you were raising charity. It was a fantastic campaign, $40,000 if people don't recall, and you're cashing in those rewards that people earned, and I'm happy about that. Yes. I think it was a I don't want to call it life-changing, but it was awfully impressive. It was an awfully impressive moment.
It certainly was a battle of endurance, and if you're a podcast listener and have no idea what we're talking about, go back to YouTube, go back to Twitch, watch what happened after we stopped recording when I drank a liver and onion smoothie, and I would say well above 8 ounces of it. Maybe we might have been pushing certainly 12 to 20.
It was at least 12. At least. Yeah.
Anyways, we don't need to continue to talk about that. Let's get into the mailbag as we are on almost training camp eve at this point, as the Lions are expected to open up training camp to the media on Wednesday. You guys have a lot of questions. Some of it are about training camp. Some of them are kind of bigger questions about roster construction and things like that. And that's all the hot topics right now. And so we're going to get right into it. And let's start with a little bit of a spicy one here from Ryan at Detroit and Toledo. Asked, let's talk D-line. What are your projected starting packages before and after Reader enters the fold? Let's start. Let's just split this into like early down, obvious passing downs.
Okay. Well, let's start with base, right?
Sure.
Like I think in their base set, it's going to be Hutchinson and then Reader and Ali McNeil, and then I think it's going to be Josh Paschal. That's going to be the other starter in the base. And when they shift out into different sets, I don't want to necessarily, it's going to be like just passing sets, but it's going to be, it could be a variety of like down distance. It could just be like subbing guys out. I do think Paschal will give way to Davenport. And Davenport gives them a different wrinkle off the edge than they have with Paschal. You can also use Davenport in a variety of different ways, but I think Aiden's going to stay out there. Now, what happens to Reader is a bit of a question that I don't think we necessarily have the answer to because we don't know. There's a lot of question marks amongst the reserve interior players. Like, is it they want a pass rusher? When they bring Davenport on, they also want to bring on a pass rusher. Could that be Levi? Could that be Wingo? Right? Or could it be John Kaminsky because they want to kick somebody like a D end inside? And so I don't know exactly how that interior spot's going to shake out when Reader exits the field. But I think that base formation of Paschal is really what that Paschal Hutchinson combination on the edges is really going to be what they come out with on like 1st and 10.
Yeah. And that's certainly, I think, how I expect it to look right away in training camp, particularly with Davenport on the PUP, because I think if there's anyone that challenges him for that position, I do think it might be Davenport. They're different players, but Davenport has so much power to his game that I think having him in on early downs makes a lot of sense, even though he's a potential double-digit sack guy when he's healthy. I think he's also got a lot of potential as a run defender. Not even just potential, like he's shown it at this level. But yeah, I do find it interesting to, when they're going heavy pass looks, when they're going their NASCAR packages like that, what is that going to look like? Do you keep Josh Pascal and just kick him inside, and then you have either Davenport or James Houston on the edge? I'm
could
with you.
Wingo.
Could have
Wingo instead of Pascal, right?
Right.
Because he's got that pass rushing step. But yeah, no, I'm with you. I'm sorry to cut you off.
No, I was just going to agree with you that I don't think Aiden Hutchinson is coming off until he's tired, right? Like that's and he's a tough guy to get tired.
Yeah.
But
for perspective, he was on the field, I think 91% of defensive snaps last year.
Ridiculous.
And that's not necessarily where they want him to be, but he's capable of that.
Right.
And we've seen from Max Crosby, that's capable. They're capable. These guys are cut from a different cloth when it comes to endurance.
Yeah.
And he can live it on the field at 90% of the time and still be effective. And that's not something a lot of players can do, but Aiden is one of them.
Yeah. The other part of the question was let's say Reader's not ready right away. He's
okay.
Who do you see, at least let's start the conversation at training camp. Who is in Reader's spot to, day one in training camp and if his injury leaks a little bit into the regular season, how do you see that playing out?
I think in an ideal world, you'd see enough progress out of Levi to push him into that starting lineup. At the same time, if Levi doesn't progress, Levi could be a bubble player. And that's kind of the variance that you can have amongst the reserves is Levi could end up being a day one starter if things go wrong. But he could also be off the roster if he doesn't, step up his game a little bit.
Yeah.
I think worst case scenario would be you're leaning on a guy like Wingo or maybe leaning on a John Kaminsky to play out of position.
Yeah.
But I think in an ideal world, if Reader's not ready, they're probably going to Levi.
I think I agree with you there. All right, let's back it up one unit because between the numbers, Anthony has a question about the linebackers. What do you expect / hope to see with Derek Barnes' evolving role? Is he trending to being more of a Sam now that Jack Campbell appears to be taking the next step forward? And how will this look in AG's pressure scheme with his drop back skill set?
I don't think they've quite given away what they want to do with the linebackers because you returned your top 5, so you kind of know what they're capable of.
Yeah.
So in spring we saw a lot of Jack Campbell at the mic, and I think that's purposeful because Jack needs to learn how to play the middle of the field there at the NFL level. I mean, we all saw him do it at Iowa,
right?
But he's going to get a lot of those reps in training camp, I would believe, as well. And some of it could just be he needs just pure exposure to that position, and maybe they know what they have in Derek Barnes, and they're going to utilize him in different aspects. It could also mean that if Campbell is taking those steps like they're expecting him to, it could permanently move Campbell or Barnes into a more flexible position where he does a variety of different things, gets some more looks at Sam. Derek can even play the will, which could give Anzalone some breaks, even though he's the captain and he's the guy. Derek Barnes' flexibility to play all 3 positions makes him a very valuable piece where he can supplement each of the other 2, but also kick out at the Sam. And so even if he's not technically coming out of the tunnel as a starter, he's still an incredibly valuable piece. And so I do think they want Jack to be the Mike.
Yeah.
And I do think it's this is almost exactly like Hendon Hooker.
I
want Hendon Hooker to be quarterback too. Right. Exactly.
But he's got to earn it.
Exactly. And they're going to give him a lot of opportunities because they know what they have in the veteran that's competing with him. And so I expect more Jack Campbell at the mic and see how long he holds on to it.
Yeah. And I mean, listen, I think the part where I think it diverts from the Hendon Hooker comparison is I think they're much more confident that Jack Campbell is either already there or very close to there. I mean, the way they were talking about him in the spring, he's out there like an 8-year veteran, I think is the quote from Kelvin Shepherd. And Kelvin Shepherd doesn't mess around, right? He doesn't say things just to say things. He means what he says. When he said there was going to be a bloodbath at the linebacker position 2 years ago and we all laughed at him, we are the ones that looked like we had egg on our face at the end. So if he's saying that Jack Campbell looks like a veteran right now, I'm I tend to believe him. I tend to think he will win that Mike job straight out of training camp and be essentially your starter. Now, like you said, that doesn't mean Derek Barnes is going away. Derek Barnes is going to have a role. The Lions know that their best foot forward is putting their best players out there, and Derek Barnes is amongst their 11 best defenders. He just is. And so I think there's a good chance we see more of 3 linebacker sets this year. I really do. I don't think the Lions are going to be afraid to be a 4-3 team because they love defending the run, first of all. And second of all, that plays to their strengths. And third of all, because now Brian Branch is learning some safeties, that's like not being in nickel doesn't mean taking him off the field anymore. So I just think whether it's Sam, Will, or whatever, we're still going to see a lot of Derek Barnes. And I think when people hear Sam, they hear pass rusher. That's not necessarily what they're doing on every play. And you need a Sam linebacker to be able to drop into coverage and defend the run, right? Like having that additional pass rusher, sure, that helps too. But that's not taking away from like another edge necessarily. Like you can have 2 edges and a Sam linebacker. And I think that's maybe what we're going to see a little bit more of because they like everything that Derek Barnes can do in terms of dropping into coverage and, making a game-sealing interception or blitzing or whatever it is. Like, I think he is such a versatile player with so many things that he can do. He might not be absolutely great at any of them, but I think he's good at so many different things. And that's what you want in a Sam linebacker, right? Like so much versatility to your game that I think he's kind of perfect for that role.
Yeah, I think you need to look at the defense as having like 12 or 13 starters, not 11, because they are a matchup team, right? And if you look at just the playoffs, they showed you 3 different defensive schemes against 3 different opponents, right?
Yep.
And that variance shows you what they want to do and what they want to be able to do. And now they actually have the depth to probably do it.
Yeah.
So I know we want to box these guys in and be like, this is what he's going to be. And look, my OCD is all aboard on that train of putting things in boxes, but that's not the way they operate. And so we have to kind of be flexible with, how we perceive these guys. And we may have to just think of it as like, there's 12 starters or 13 starters because they have so many different variances depending on opponent.
All right, let's move to our next question here. This one comes from Van the Man 14. It says, who is a Lion on offense and defense that you expect to be an important rotational player? Under the radar, Lions player who is not getting enough media attention or talk.
Well, I think if we go to defense first, we can talk about the fact that what we just said, there's going to be a guy who's not a starter who's going to give you like starter level reps, right?
Sure.
We saw it last year at the defensive end spot opposite Aiden. Both Pascal and Comiskey were giving you over 50% of defensive snaps they were giving you over starter level snaps, right?
Right.
So there's going to be guys that, so like we could include Derek Barnes as that, but I think that's too easy.
Sure.
Right. If we had to go a little bit deeper, I think the wild card for me is going to be Amik Robertson.
Sure.
For me, they went after him for a reason, and then they're utilizing him inside. We know from his time in with the Raiders that he's comfortable outside as well. They went and got him with a plan. And I don't think like a lot of people are looking at him and saying, oh, well, they drafted 2 corners, they traded for a corner, and then bringing back Mosley. And so maybe he'll be in the rotation somewhere, and maybe he will be, but I think he's going to play outside cornerback is a position. I've always said you need 3 capable starters. And I think right now Amik is probably the 3rd, and he's could also be the guy that kicks inside. And if you are using Branch back, when you move Branch back, Amik's probably the guy that's going to be the nickel. So on defense, I'm going with Amik Robertson.
Yeah, I think that makes a lot of sense. I do expect him, at the very least, to get a lot of nickel reps, as you were just saying there. I know it wasn't what he was best at with the Raiders, but I think I think in particular he fits what the Lions want out of their nickel. I'm not sure if that's what the
exactly.
Raiders wanted out of their nickel, but like physical run defender who can play press coverage. Like that's Amik. Like he can do that. Elsewhere on defense, it's tough because it does feel like a lot of those roles are filled, but I just think there's going to be a pretty heavy rotation among the edge. So the problem is I don't know who's going to make the team and who's not, like, because part of me wants to say someone like Matthew Betts, but I'm not sure Matthew Betts makes the team. If he does, I think he's going to have a pretty significant role. If he doesn't, well, then he's obviously not going to have any role. But
I mean, that could be James Houston too.
Right. It could be James Houston.
Absolutely.
James Houston maybe a little less under the radar because of the rookie season he had. But
yeah.
I was saying this yesterday on the podcast. I understand people are down on the edge because there isn't a big name opposite Aiden Hutchinson, but everyone in that room has such a high potential that it's like you just need one or two of those guys, like whether it's Josh Pascal hitting that developmental track of in year 3, whether it's Marcus Davenport staying healthy or whether it's Matthew Betts transferring from the CFL to the NFL in a positive way. I just think one of those players is going to hit, and I don't know which one it's going to be. I'm not a fortune teller, but I'm not counting out a guy like Matthew Betts because I think the fact that he even picked the Lions, remember that story, like the Lions did not give him any guaranteed money, and he still said, my career path is best served by going to Detroit. That tells me that the Lions probably told him something like, we really think you have a spot on this roster. We really think you bring what we're looking for. And so I wouldn't count him out. And I'm not just saying this as fan service to our good friend, John Whitaker. I honestly think he has a good chance of making this roster and making it.
Well, keep in mind, they kept 7 edge players off the jump. Now they did shift Julian to IR, but that was still 6. Right. And so I know we're looking at this saying, Hutchinson, Davenport, Pascal, Kaminsky, and then those are your top 4. And then is it Houston? Is it Betts? Well, it could be both.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a little challenging from a construction standpoint to keep 6. But if guys like Houston and Betts adapt really well to special teams and can play a pass rushing role, then hey, great. There might be a path for them, and then somewhere else gets cut a little bit short.
All right. Offensive pick.
Offense? Yeah. All right.
Is it not under the radar enough to say Khalif Raymond?
I mean, that's the obvious one, right? Because he's not going to be a starter, or probably shouldn't. And I don't think they want him to be a starter, right? Because they don't want to have him subject him to what they need an X to be.
Right.
He's going to get snaps. He's going to get reps. But I think he's
still good for like 400 yards and 2 touchdowns a season, right? Like that's.
Yes.
He's consistently produced that. He's obviously still going to most likely be the team's punt returner. And in a pinch, when injury bug hits, like he's a guy that theoretically can fill all 3 spots. It's not, he's not ideally an X or ideally a Z or anything like that, but he knows the positions, he's trustworthy, and he can go out there and create separation. So I don't know. He's probably, like you said, not going to win the wide receiver 3 job or whatever we're calling it. But he's going to have significant contributions on offense because they like him, because he's a decent player, and he's good depth. Yeah. So I know he's been here for 3 years now, but I still feel like he's being underrated.
Yeah, I think that comes with the not being a technical starter, right? So much we put so much weight on things like technical starters. Even when we write articles where we note how many starts they are, even though we know they're kind of it's kind of a non-stat except for offensive linemen. Like offensive linemen, they start or they don't, right? Like that's kind of how it is. Right. But everybody else, it's kind of rotational. It's hard to argue on offense because, I mean, it's hard to pick somebody else other than Khalif Raymond, because I'd love to pick Vaki, but I don't think, how much is RB3 going to get a run if he wins even the RB3 job? Right. The only way offensive linemen are getting play is if they're in injury, and you don't want to project that. So I kind of got a feeling like James Mitchell could do something year 3 jump.
Yeah.
I think he has all the talent. I think he's going to get pushed this year by Zylstra, and I'm kind of waiting for him to break out. And I think people are down on him. Yeah. So if you wanted to, I think he's more sleeper than He'd be more of my like sleeper candidate as opposed to like a guy that I think is gonna like, break out. I think he
Yeah.
could, but I don't know I agree with you that Khalif Raymond is probably the better answer.
I wrote about this because I want to continue to talk about the tight end position a little bit because it's
Mm-hmm.
obviously the first two are solidified and those guys are going to eat up the majority of the snaps, if not. And by majority, I mean like 80 to 90%. So it's hard to see anyone
Yep.
necessarily breaking out of that group as a significant contributor, again, unless there's an injury. But I wrote about this in the newsletter a little bit, and Parker Hesse is a guy that I can't count out. There's something about his history. He's played a little bit of fullback. That certainly sticks out to me. He's done a lot of special teams, and so we know they don't have a fullback. We know they want to do a little bit of fullback. Like it's obviously not a big enough role that they're committing an entire roster spot to it. But I can't shake him right now for whatever reason. I think the Lions are reaching the end of the road with James Mitchell, whether it's like you either have to develop or you're not worth the roster spot anymore. Shane Zylstra is great, but how much is he providing as a blocker? We'll still see. I mean, he's a converted wide receiver,
Mm-hmm.
right? So both those veterans, McKay, is that the other one? McKee? Both those guys, I think, are players that shouldn't be overlooked this training camp and just assumed that those top four guys that we all have penciled in are going to win the job. I think there's going to be a legitimate competition for all six of those guys in that room, and
Mm-hmm.
they all provide a little bit something different.
Yeah, and again, I hate to like beat a dead horse here, but like special teams is going to be key. That you need bodies who can move and block, and those are tight ends. And without a fullback on the roster, it does seem to make a lot of sense that you're going to add a fourth. I don't know if they could add a fifth. That would be a
Yeah,
little bit stretch for me.
right.
But you never know. Like these guys, like they're very creative and out of the box, and I'm not ruling it out. I do think four is a pretty good.
Yeah.
It's a pretty solid number though.
Right. And to be clear, like one of those veterans sneaking in to me is at the expense of either James Mitchell or Shane Zylstra. It is not in addition to. I think that I think they keep four as well. It's just one of those guys who I think we've all been penciling in for tight end 3. If one of those guys slips and doesn't produce, be on the lookout for one of those veterans. But we're going to take a break here. When we come back, more of your Lions questions as we get ready for Detroit Lions training camp getting started later this week. Then it's off to the preseason and the regular season. But before that, we'll be right back with the Midweek Mailbag. This glare is driving me crazy, and it's driving people in the chat crazy. And I keep like adjusting and moving, and like maybe if I put my hand here for a second, it'll go away. Oh, now it is away, and then it'll come back in a second.
It was there yesterday too, by the way.
It wasn't this bad, and I noticed it once we were about to go live, so I tried to change the lighting a little bit, and it didn't.
Here's the thing. Look at my shirt. Do you see a stripe right here?
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know what it is because I didn't have that yesterday either, but I have my lights and I was trying to flicker those as well before we jumped on.
Okay.
So I'm not sure.
I'm going to do this, and I might regret doing it, but I need to know if this ends the stream or not. So if everyone watching, I'm going to try to do something that might end the stream. We will be right back, I promise, if it does kick us off, but I need to know so that I can adjust this, so I can adjust my backgrounds, things like this. So hang with me for a second here. Hopefully this doesn't ruin everything. We'll be right back.
Oh, you did. No, I'm not on the stream at all. No, yeah, now it's just you. No audio. Oh, they can hear me.
That's funny. Okay. Oh, that didn't work. It came back. All right, hold on. We're going to go back. That didn't end the stream. That's all I needed to know. Okay, now you can hear both of us. But why did that mess up the... Like, why is it fine now? That's so weird. It's not that shiny. Like, look, it's not that shiny. Is it that different? Oh, this is where... I'll turn it down even more.
It's a side effect from all the liver.
That doesn't feel... Shut up. That's too much. Yeah, that's too much. Hold on. Okay, let's try that. Let's go back. It's probably going to be... Why? Is it Zoom that's doing this? Maybe it's Zoom. Hold on. Maybe Zoom has a... video filter?
Maybe you just got green. Maybe you got green pores.
I don't know.
Listen, I think you should keep trying.
Do you?
I think it's gonna work. Just keep pressing buttons. I have confidence.
Shut up. Wait, there's no video filter, but do I have virtual background on? No, I don't.
Oh.
No, that's not working. Hold on. I'm gonna adjust the lighting a little bit, and then I'm gonna stop. Try.
It's not gonna work. See, because even his black chair is pixelizing green. Like it's.
Maybe I'll just wear a hat.
Yeah.
No. I'm gonna wear a hat. I'm just. It's bothering. Like it's so distracting to me. I wonder why it's like this though.
Can you put long sleeves on too?
No, you're gonna have to deal with the weird arms. All right, we're not doing the cowboy hat. All right, chat. Hey, what's up? Let's hang out for a second. I'll talk about some alerts that went off. I am sweating too, so maybe I'm just wet.
Yeah,
that was weird.
Maybe you're just your pores are leaking green.
That must be it. All right. Where was I? Liam, thank you for the tier 1 subscription. First time, I appreciate you. No decaf, thank you for the raid of 11 people. Shout out to the people that were watching Chris's stream prior to us. I didn't get a chance to hang out and see what y'all were talking about, but hope y'all had a good time. MJ Kimball, thank you for the 45-month subscribe to the channel. Says, I want to see more encouraging Erik. Encouraging Erik being capitalized. Your new character.
No way, man. That's positive. That's positive, Erik.
Yeah.
Very, very happy to help you.
As long as we're admitting now that that's not just Erik. That is a version of Erik.
We all wear different hats, man.
That's right.
Sometimes we wear hats as reporters. Sometimes we wear hats to encourage our buddies. Sometimes we wear hats to break up the pixelization on our forehead
to make sure our forehead isn't disappearing
for different reasons. Exactly.
Data and Lower, thank you for the 25 months. Says 25 months can't be stopped, won't be stopped, boys. Let's go. Appreciate you. John Johnson, thank you for the 10-month subscribe to the channel. Says everything is right in the world now. Throws some Honolulu Blue Kool-Aid in there. Thano TV, 23 months. Says so excited to have these two sex machines back on my screen. Wow. That is the first time anyone has uttered that sentence in regards to both of us. Buckeye, thank you for watching us for 3 streams in a row. Apparently that's now on the activity feed, but I'm happy to shout that out. Appreciate your support. Q-Man, thank you for the 7 months subscribe. Says we are so back. Thomas J. Hutchins, thank you for the 18-month subscribe to the channel. Brad Nevada, 20 months, says love that the main show is back.
Me too.
I'll allow it. AP Durag, thank you for the 4-month subscribe to the channel. Kick Puncher, 9 months. That's Twitch, baby. He says, love you guys. Thanks for the content. You are more than welcome. Woodchuck Hunter 10-bit says, wrap it up, guys. Scooball's on the mound tonight. Hey, we're just trying to get you guys out before Inside the Den. And we might hang around and do an Inside the Den watch party. We'll see how I'm feeling. Currently, I'm sweating a lot, so I'm not feeling like it's going to happen. But to answer the question before anyone else asks, no, I don't know if this is the draft episode of Inside the Den. But the fact that they've advertised it twice and only talked about Amon-Ra being in Germany, I'm guessing it's not. I'm guessing. It'd be a weird way to advertise your, like, the most anticipated episode of Inside the Den, which is all of their draft coverage, by only talking about Amon-Ra, right?
It would be unusual.
Yeah. Ken Jammin, thank you for the 37 months subscribe to the channel. Big Yogurt, 14 months, says, I low-key still think Mosley might start when he gets healthy. That's, you know what? That's not a bad answer for the kind of underrated, lesser talked about guys.
Yeah, I just don't know where his health is. Right? Like,
fingers crossed. The fact that he's not on PUP right now is a good sign. But again, the players technically report tomorrow.
Though.
Yeah, the players technically report tomorrow. But the way it seems to be working, because if you've seen some of the TikToks out there, like Hendon Hooker's already there, Kirby Joseph's already there. Sometimes guys that are rehabbing
injured,
are already there.
Yep.
So if Emmanuel Mosley is rehabbing, he might already be there, and if he's already there and not on the PUP list, like, maybe that's a good thing.
They could also be holding it.
I'm stretching.
Right.
Yes, I don't want to. That's why when I'm saying this, maybe he's not on the PUP list.
Yeah.
Matt Sick, thank you for the 25-month subscribe to the channel. Buckethead Nick, thank you for the 8-month subscribe to the channel. Says, hell yeah, best POD is back. Thank you, man. Nick the Greek, 100 bits. The True King is back. Crank up the coconut pilled machine, baby. You're really trying to always get us in trouble, Nick, and I kind of appreciate it. Downgrade, thank you for the 3 months. Says, guess who's back? Back again. POD's back. Hello, friend. Guess who's back? Luxtables. Where did I put the dang cowboy hat? All right, I'll get that. Answer some people's questions while I'm putting this on.
All right, so Robo, the way it works is for padded practices is the acclimation period starts when the first day camp. But the first day camp can be when they do the conditioning test. So the veterans are supposed to arrive tomorrow, so technically that can be day one, right? They have to have 3 days of just nothing, just t-shirt, just jersey and shorts for 3 days. So we're talking Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, or something like that, right? And then they can do shells for practice 4 and 5, which means that would be like Friday, Saturday. Saturday is the day that the ticket holders can come. Mandatory day 6 off, which means, and they have their day off on Sunday. So the first padded practice is technically Monday. Possibility is Monday, right? They can't do it ahead of Monday. So that's why they don't do the practice. That's why I don't let the fans in, right? Until like the 5th practice or, the 6th practice, is because there's this slow ramp up period. Like the time is shorter at the beginning of the week, and then they can add 15 minutes onto each day. But by the time they get to like Saturday, they can go and they're going to have like a full time limit with shells probably. And then Monday will probably be like a full time limit pads. So earliest is Monday.
There you go. Whew, sorry. I'm definitely sweating right now.
No word on cap relief from Sutton. That's a process.
Yeah,
the fact that he got suspended, though, certainly favors the Lions, I would say.
Yeah. And what was it? 6 games? 8 games? It was 8 games, right?
8.
That's a pretty significant suspension.
Yes.
And so if they think you violated the league's policy of conduct, I think the Lions are probably going to have a pretty good argument to say that he violated the
Yep.
you know
Yep. Code of conduct.
code
Yep.
of
For them
conduct
too.
in there. Yeah,
Yep.
exactly.
Yep. Yeah. So I think, I don't know, the way that Over the Cap explained it to us. Why am I blanking on his name? Brad from
Brad.
Over the Cap explained it to us
Yeah.
is
Spielberger.
you gotta hold like 40% of the guaranteed money, which is around 4 million, and then they still would have like the 6 million to kind of potentially work with, and then if it goes against them, then they have to scramble. If it goes in their favor, then they end up getting even more. So they're in that process right now.
Yep.
So, someone, where is it? Michael asked you how your stomach was doing.
I'm doing fine. I woke up this morning and felt generally fine, other than the fact that my mouth just feels like it's constantly filled with salt. Still, like I'm craving so many like sweet foods today just to counteract the baseline saltiness of my mouth. It's pretty ridiculous.
I don't think I missed anything else.
Okay. I did have a question that we got from Twitter that I didn't really want to talk about on stream, but I think is an interesting question to talk about. And it's a little bit insider baseball. It's about the profession more than actual Lion stuff. But and if you don't want to answer this, Eric, you don't have to. But Austin asked if we were offered Mike O'Hara's job, would you take it? And
Well,
it's a complicated answer, right? Because,
certainly.
I won't act like I haven't thought about it. I won't act like I haven't thought about applying for the Detroit News job. But I didn't apply for the Detroit News job, and I'm not sure I would take the Mike O'Hara job. It's hard to say. For one, like, having the pressure of filling either of those guys' seat is a lot, whether it's Justin or Mike O'Hara. Like, it's intimidating. Not saying that should be a reason not to even try, but I mean, it's those guys were incredible at what they did. But they're different jobs than the ones we have now too. Like, yes, they're Lions beat writer or Lions writer, whatever. But writing for a newspaper comes with a lot more red tape than probably what I'm currently dealing with. Writing for the team means certain topics are probably off topic, and I can't quite speak as freely, I would imagine, as I can right now. Not that I'm someone that spends a lot of time, crapping on the organization or anything, but it'd be much different. And I don't know. I don't know. Like, I don't have a straight answer to that question, but I think it's an interesting thought experiment. I think like a lot of things in life, when it comes to your career, a lot of it is depending on benefits, how much I'm getting paid, that sort of stuff. But I do want to make it very clear that I am extremely happy with where I'm at. I think Pride of Detroit gives us a unique platform that no one else can. They give us a ton of creative flexibility. In fact, essentially infinite creative flexibility. I love our community at Pride of Detroit. It would be way different. We'd be, I'd have a different audience working at a newspaper. I'd have a different audience working at DetroitLions.com. And so I never, you don't want to get too comfortable in one place because it, could be dragged from under your feet in an instant. But at the same time, and you never want to get complacent either. But man, professionally, there are a lot of things I am satisfied with. And so it would, I guess my answer is it would have to be a very competitive offer.
Yeah, I think for me, I don't know if I could deliver what the news would want in the way my current life is structured.
Sure.
Because I'm stay-at-home dad for 3 kids as well as doing this, and so it would have to be a big lifestyle change for me, which of course would mean it'd have to be like like you said, you'd have to be compensated properly.
Yeah.
I do think I'm better suited for the O'Hare job than I would be for Roger's job personally. I think that it lends itself more to what I do. Uh, at the same time, I agree with you that I think there would be more restrictions to the position than what I have now. Some of the things that I do now, uh, roster breakdowns, depth charts, and stuff like that. I don't know if I would have that same type of freedom to do on the site without having to jump through hoops and get permission.
Right.
It's now I can give you my interpretive view of what I think it looks like based on what I'm seeing, what I'm hearing, what I'm reading. Um, whereas if I were to publish something on the Detroit Lions website, it would be taken as like law, like as if it's coming from the Lions, and
Yep.
so they would want, I'm sure, to look at it. They would want to, and I feel like I'd be some of the things that I do best, or what I think I do best, things that I enjoy. I think the things that people are most receptive to what I do might be limited. So it'd be a lifestyle change for me. It would be potentially restrictive in some of the things I'm best at, but I mean, I certainly still think I'm better suited for that job than the news job. Um, but yeah, I'm kind of in the same boat as you. It would have to be worth it would have to have a competitive offer.
Yeah.
Like, because I would have to, not only would I have to like change where I'm physically at on a daily basis, but I now have 3 kids that I have to now have daycare for, right?
Right.
That I have to have, or, after school care for.
Right.
And one I have to have in daycare the whole, and that's very expensive. And so
Sure.
those are huge costs that go into it. And so, yeah, there's, I'm surely intrigued more by the Lions than like I said, the news. I I hope Nolan gets the job over at the news. Let's go Nolan.
Yeah.
Let's hope he gets.
Nolan's great.
Um,
Shout out.
and but yeah, yeah, if the Lions came over and said, "Hey, we're interested in you,"
Yeah, I don't think
I'd
either
have
of us go like, no thanks. Like that's
Yeah.
to be clear. Like,
I'd have to say, huh, liver and onions, Detroit Lions.
my overall point just being like it would be a significant job change. I know it might not seem like being a beat writer for
It
one,
is.
but it's a significant job change. It would require us to do things that maybe are a little bit outside of our comfort zone, but what job isn't? And to be clear, I think we're both absolutely capable of it. It's just it's weighing the amount of alteration to what we prefer to do or what we think we're particularly good at with the proper compensation for that.
Yeah, I really think the things that make us unique as a media outlet are things that wouldn't necessarily work
Right.
under either platform. And I do think we could adjust, but
Some of
it would be
some of the stuff we do would work, some of it wouldn't.
right. It would change how we operate. And I don't know. I mean, yeah, we'll see.
Yeah. While we're kind of on the topic of beat writing, we definitely got to shout out Justin Rogers, who announced today that he's going independent but still covering the Detroit Lions. If you haven't seen, he's launching what he's calling Detroit Football Network, a Substack. Is it officially? I think it is.
Correct.
I subscribed. I definitely recommend that you subscribe. I even talked to Justin a little bit today, and he's been overwhelmed with the response. You guys have already broken his expectations for day one, week 2, I think even. So he's finding out what we have found out when we came back, what we found out during our Movember campaigns, when we launched on Twitch and YouTube, which is Lions fans are freaking awesome. They're willing to put money behind good product, and they're insatiable. And so it's really good to see good writers, good content creators, good minds get rewarded for taking big risks. Because what Justin did it's a pretty darn significant risk, and he also has a family he has to take care of. And so that was a big leap, and I know he's anxious about it, because who wouldn't be? And because of the awesomeness that are you guys, he's feeling much more at ease today. So shout out to him for making that. Shout out to all you for supporting someone who deserves it.
Yeah, it's certainly brave, and you're banking on a lot of people coming to bat for you, and come in being willing to pay for what you are going to produce. And so with guys like Arif and Tyler, they're national guys, right? So they have a much broader base to appeal to. And so
Sure.
I see how it can make sense for those guys. But for Justin, having a this market, it has to be a really passionate fan base in order to work. And there's not a lot of fan bases that would be able to live up to that.
Yep.
And I think I think the Lions does that. I mean, it certainly helps that he has nearly 20 years of experience under his belt as well, and he is the best of us, and so all that certainly helps as well. So
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm glad he's hitting his marks, because I was a little worried there.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
I was worried too about losing him. He's someone I've not been shy about saying it's been very important to my professional development and personal development. I said yesterday, I've played disc golf with him a couple times this offseason. I consider him a friend. So seeing him stress out over everything was tough, because he should be valued. I guess that's all I'll say on that. He should be valued. And yeah, like, we're always open to I see some people suggesting we collaborate with him in some form or another, and I think we'll obviously have him on for a podcast at some point or another. Maybe it's since First Bite is now a newsletter thing. Maybe it's a newsletter piece. Maybe it's a newsletter piece next week. Our kind of like week 1 training camp recap. We'll see, but yeah, I support Justin in any way possible, because he's the closest thing we have to killer, if to put it bluntly. Like, he's that good. Anyways, Lions talk. That's a good question. Are you considered AI if you're the machine?
I don't think so, but when we hired Al, I think some of our staff thought we were introducing an AI component, which was a fun couple hours.
This has been a pet peeve of mine for a while, but why do we all accept that a capital I and a lowercase l look the exact same on a computer? Like, why is that something we've just accepted and be like, well, what are you going to do?
Yeah. I mean, look, we can change it. You can't change it now, man.
Why?
People
are going to freak out for a week, because people freak out about any change, and then they're going to be fine. Just add a little curl. Just add a little curl to the L.
I mean, you can, but on
just
a computer,
cross the I's. Who cares?
I think you're talking about, like, I don't think the scope of what you're talking about is awfully extensive. Do you remember, like, how? Well, I mean, do you remember, like, how significant, like, Y2K was, and it was just adding a couple of zeros on? Like,
yep.
You're talking about, like, everything would have to, like, be able to reformat to this just this little mark. Like,
deal with it.
Massive.
Sometimes small changes like that are necessary.
No.
Yeah.
Maybe for individuals, but I think I don't think people would pay the money for
sometimes that. Something has just been old and ready to go, and instead of just sitting and waiting a couple months or waiting a couple years and just seeing what happens, maybe you just make a change at the last minute.
Dude, look at how we write with, like, one space after the paragraph, right? Or after a sentence, right? Yeah. Like, that's not an issue now. We're not counting characters now, but 20 years ago when they had to count characters online so that you had to space things and save money. And that's still the way we do it when it's not even a factor anymore. Like people are resistant to change. So,
Well, sometimes
yeah.
you got to push them.
Okay. Let's have some bigger goals.
Guys Named over on Twitch asks, how do you guys feel about the media backlash on MCDC's fourth downs and needing to tone it down? I think it's BS just because it didn't work out, didn't make it wrong, but I'm open to the counter argument.
Which media, I guess, because I think a lot of the beat, right? Are you talking about like in San Francisco specifically? Like, I think
there was backlash. It doesn't really matter where it came from. There was backlash of Dan Campbell going for it too much, particularly in the NFC Championship game, but I would say even for the entire season, right?
Now that was kind of chaotic in the moment in San Francisco, but I seem to remember most of the people in the booth there with us were talking about the fact that their fourth down success rate was higher than Badgley's field goal percentage from kicking from distance outside. Yeah. So from a percentage standpoint, it was actually a higher percentage play to go for it. And so I don't know. So, all right, maybe I'm off. Let's re-ask the question. Maybe I'm just heard it wrong. What about the media backlash on Dan Campbell?
How do you guys feel about the media backlash on MCDC fourth downs and needing to tone it down? I think it's BS.
I don't think you should tone it down. The aggressiveness is what gets them there. It's what makes them great. I love every bit of it. I'm absolutely 100% behind it. I want to see the same mentality going into this season. It's what made them. It's what separated them. It's what made them great, in my opinion. It is what took them from being in games where they were maybe borderline or would have been like a coin flip or like maybe they would have lost. They put them in position to win.
Right.
So I'm all about it. All about it.
Yeah, I mean, I think in general, I'm 100% in Dan Campbell's corner. I think being aggressive makes more sense. Now, I think both you and I have had individual disagreements with choices he's made.
Sure.
I think even in that 49ers game, like there was a time or two where I turned to you and be like, would you be going for it? You're like, no, I think I'd be kicking the field goal. And I think we both agree that the bigger blunder he made in that game, which he actually copped to, was taking that timeout on the offensive drive.
Yep.
Which got them to a point where they couldn't
win.
If the 49ers got the ball, the game was over because they couldn't use all three timeouts because they only had two. But I mean, but at that point, like the Lions' win percentage is already like 0.06%. That probably doesn't matter.
It mattered. That was the call I pushed back against the most by far. By far.
I do think this idea, though, that he's playing the percentages is also a little misguided. I mean, he technically is, but I'm not sure that's his reasoning sometimes. Because sometimes it just feels like he's going with his gut. And
sure.
And that's fine. Because if it's also backed up by numbers, great. Who cares the reasoning he's doing it? But I think sometimes the gut feeling, he gets a little caught up in the moment. It doesn't happen a lot. But the one that I push back the most on, and Comeback Trapper just threw it in the chat, is the 2-point conversions in Dallas. Like once you got that penalty and you got moved back to the 7, that is a very low percentage play. Very low. Like a 2-point conversion from the 7 is a very low percentage play.
I don't care. I was like, go for it.
Yeah, because you got caught up in the moment.
No. Well,
yes,
you know what?
You did.
Yeah. Well, you know why? Like Laser says, F them. Like, yeah, that's why. Yeah, you're gonna penalize us on a BS call. Yeah, F them. Going for it again.
Great.
I don't care.
So your strategy is out of spite. That is not a good place to be.
There's
you gotta be level headed.
You win games.
You're riding the motions. You're doing the exact same thing he tells you not to do.
2022 week 18. That was all spite.
That's just playing football.
Well, but that's the same thing. That's what I look at in that 2-point conversion, because you know why? because we still have a play that can make this work. Like it
didn't work.
I think the 49ers timeout was more egregious than the Dallas one.
It was okay. It was a less it's a less defendable thing that he did. I agree, but the Dallas one was a more costly one.
Not really, because they ended up losing. Dallas lost anyways, right? So like they ended up getting.
No, I mean in the moment. No, not come on.
Oh, in the moment.
In the moment, it was a more costly mistake.
No, you go for it because karma comes back and helps you, man.
Like if you look at like the win percentage of decisions that you make, the win percentage that they lost in that decision was way higher than the win percentage lost in the 49ers game because again, the game was pretty much already lost in San Francisco.
I love analytics. I think they're great. I think they're a useful tool.
Oh boy.
I also I also think that the individuals, the coaches, the front office people that can understand and assess the analytics and then still go with what they think is right.
Sure.
Is incredibly beneficial
agree.
Because you got to that point not by having all of the answers played out for you. You got there by being able to look at what you see, being able to say, this is my gut, this is what it's telling me, this is what my history, and all of that stuff has to come in. And so like,
agreed.
Yes, I think analytics are great.
What can't come in is I'm mad because you made a bad call. Let me go prove you wrong.
I don't think it was
decision making.
No, I think
you just said it was.
No. I said, I said for me, it was go for it because I'm saying for him, they even said it going into that game. They said if they get to a spot where they have a chance to go for the 2-point conversion to win, they're going to go for it.
Yes, and I approved of it when they initially went for it.
Right. But I think in their head, it was no matter what, we're going to try and win the game. And that mentality is I'm all about. And I get it's a lower percentage play. I get it's a harder conversion, but I think he looked at it and said, if we get this, the game's over. And then
that's not even completely true. There was 30 some seconds left.
All right. Essentially, but they put themselves in a better spot to win by converting it. And I think he trusts your offense is a top 5 offense. They can score from the 7. We've seen them score from the 7 a lot. And so I don't care. I think that mentality was I want to win the game. No, it's not stubbornness. It's
okay. Well,
this was our plan, and I'm sticking to our plan.
But the plan isn't go for 2 from no matter how far out it is.
No, but the plan is win the game.
Okay, so what's the line then? What was the line? The 15-yard line?
I don't know what the line was, but I know the 7 wasn't it because if it was, he would have kicked it.
But that's what I'm saying. You get that far down, but not close enough where you can run the ball. There is not a lot of open space to throw it.
I've seen them convert on 4th and 7 before, so I don't.
From the goal, 4th and goal from the 7?
No,
that's different. Yeah. You can convert a 4th and 7 from the 45 because you have the whole freaking field. Everything is so condensed there, man. It is hard to throw in the red zone.
I do. I hear what you're saying. I still disagree with it because I think the with any aggressive decision, you are looking at the cost benefit analysis.
Sure.
Am I willing to give up the lead because I want to get the lead, or am I willing to lose because I'm willing to go for it? And I think he said, I trust in my guys more than, and I'm willing to go for it.
Yeah.
And I know the percentages are low, but my guys overcome low percentages. And I believe that they can do it here because this team doesn't deal with pressure the way that a lot of teams in the NFL do. Like they rise with the pressure on. It's so.
Look,
I'm all about it.
I don't question the bravery of the move. It was a brave move. No question about it. I didn't like the logic behind it. That's all. We don't need to relitigate a play that ended up not actually mattering that much.
No, but I think it speaks to the mentality overall is that it's
definitely proof that they're not going to change, right? Like it's everyone who says like, oh, we got Jake Bates now, see you later to going for it on 4th and 3. Like, no, they're still going to go for it.
Yeah, which is why I think it's not going to come down to big legs as much as it's going to come down to accuracy for that kicking competition.
Yeah.
for me, I don't think they're going to change. I don't think he's going to change. And I'm willing to I'm willing to put the chips on the table and
In
go.
and
And
I'm
I'm and
more
you
than
have a
often than
limit
not,
to
I'm with you.
more
Like
right.
you
Yeah,
know,
you have a
I'm a
limit to
more
that.
aggressive mindset. Like I definitely love
Sure.
going for it on fourth down as much as I do, and I would 100% rather take a guy who is overly aggressive than someone who is overly conservative. Jim Caldwell in the playoffs against Dallas. Like you put Dan Campbell in that Dallas game from 2014, he is not punting after the freaking picked up flag. He's going for it. And then the Lions' fate is their own, right? It's not in the hands of the referees. And it was 4th and 1, I think, from like the Cowboys 43. We would tear that man apart today with all the analytics that are out there. And for some reason, he got a pass because everyone was mad at the refs. That's the one that still sticks in my craw. And that team could have made the Super Bowl.
Too passive.
Anyways. Jim Caldwell, you're a very honorable man. I'm sorry it ended the way that it did, but it is kind of your fault.
On a scale of Jim Caldwell to Leroy Jenkins, I'm more of a Leroy Jenkins than I.
That's right. All right. Any other questions before we jump back into our final segment here? That was a fun trip down Dallas bullshit memory lane. Yeah. Yep. Got him again this year, folks.
In Dallas too, right?
In Dallas again. That's right.
Mm-hmm. Oh, I would love to talk about the Packers game again. What a great game. Just immortalized what this team is. You've
definitely got that on your bingo card. Your POD
I talk about it
card.
every podcast. I'll talk about that game. I don't care. It was great. It was great. That's
a good game.
That game was I'm all in. Like, it does not matter anymore. Like, just give me everything, and it was everything that I wanted. It was beautiful. It was a beautiful game. That was a big FU game there too.
Sure was. I mean,
that game had everything.
Quite literally,
ridiculous Amon-Ra catching the ball on his butt cheek and one toe and butt cheek. Right. It had 4th down conversions. It had interceptions to seal careers. It had everything. That game had it all. It was like, it was beautiful.
I mean, listen, it's basically the ideal finish to that season outside of making the playoffs. Like, there is nothing.
Yeah.
There's nothing better short of making the playoffs than knocking the Packers out, finishing the season 8-2, doing it in Lambeau in front of a national audience as the last regular season game of the season.
We've seen, like, in the last year, and but if you include that game, like the last 20 games, we've seen like 5 like just huge, massive games that have defined what this team is
historically. Like unforgettable franchise moments.
Yeah, it's Packers, it's KC, it's Rams in the play, like and then to double up on that with the Bucks,
the Vikings at Minnesota last year to clinch the division.
And I still think that San Francisco game is a stepping stone to the next level. And I know a lot of people are still in the, well, it's never guaranteed to get back and stuff like that. But like, I look at, like, I watched that whole receiver doc. I didn't just watch the Amon-Ra parts. I watched the whole doc. And I was watching that San Francisco part, which actually hurt more than I thought it would. But I was watching that San Francisco part, and I was like, they've had 4 like heartbreaks like in a row. But like they've at least they had a heartbreak to get to the next spot, and they're still trying to get to that next step, that final raise the trophy moment. But like that's part of the process in my mind. And when you look at how the Lions are constructed, and it's in a very similar approach to how San Fran was built.
Sure.
It's
They're in
that
for the long haul, man.
heartbreak. I think that heartbreak, like in San Fran last year, is a the way this team is, the way that it just eats at them and it sits in them and it motivates them. I think that heartbreak is going to be what catapults them another step. And there's not a lot of teams that do that because there's not a lot of players that are able to do that. And this team has got player after player after player and coach after coach after coach that just, I think, can turn that down moment into motivation to just ascend.
Yeah.
And so
if there's any team capable of digesting that and turning it into something positive, is certainly the Lions. I tend to think some of that narrative stuff is a little bit overplayed. I think talent ultimately wins, but the Lions have a really talented roster. And so they have a talented enough roster to win the Super Bowl. You combine that with a fire in their belly, that's maybe enough.
Yeah. I mean, the pillars of this team all have I want to be better than everyone else. I want to be the best. Like I want, and
the thing is though, like we tend to attribute how they digested this based on next year's results, no matter what happens. So if they lose in the first round, they had a hangover from last year. There's too much heartbreak last year. They didn't. If they get further, it's they took that and they balled it up and they turned it into something positive and they learned from it and they're better for it and they use that. Like, and I don't know. I tend to think some of that stuff is a little bit overblown.
I'll put the challenge out to him right now, just like I put that challenge out to him before. Man, I think this is
you about to cut a promo? We got to save that for like the preview, the season. Preview
I think this
show.
is I think this is a harness the moment. This is a harness the moment situation.
Yeah.
So,
there's one more question I wanted to get to before we jumped in, and now I've forgotten what it is.
Sorry, I got enough on a tangent.
No, that's okay.
There.
We both did. I did say brevity, didn't I? I lost it. I don't know where it is. I'm sweating.
All right.
Oh, Jordan Love. Dan was asking about Jordan Love. Do you have a take regarding him sitting out of practice until he gets a new contract?
Well, I'm all for it.
No, well, okay. So like the takes I've seen out of Lions land, and granted these are coming from Lions fan, are who does he think he is? He has 8 good games, and now he thinks he deserves to be paid $1 bajillion. Do you think he's being unreasonable at all?
I think he's in a tough spot because he was drafted in the first round and then asked to sit.
Right.
And so he is much further along in his shelf life, I think, than like most people like are thinking about, because this is the last year of his contract, right?
Yeah, I believe so.
Right. And so, so he's at a point where he's like, if I'm him, I'm saying, I have to stabilize myself. I have to get my contract and get paid so that I feel like comfortable, right? And because I don't know what's going to happen next. At the same time, the Packers are looking at it with him saying, well, you've got 1 year of production, and it was a really good year, but can you replicate that? And so I understand their trepidation.
Yep.
But like for him, I absolutely get the spot that he's in, that they put him in, and saying, you got to help me out here.
Yeah.
And asking for a long-term contract. I know I don't like when players hold out. At the same time, he's got to think of himself. And I get that. So
it's kind of like a half holdout, because he's there, he's in the meetings, He's going through whatever like physical things he needs to go to. He's just not going to go on the practice field and risk injury. And so it's not. I would still classify it as a holdout because he's not practicing with the team. He's not getting the necessary reps that he should be getting. But it's not. It's not like he's away from the building. And listen, like, this story is getting way overblown in the first 24 hours because I think with the way the Packers are talking.
Off-season.
Yeah, because it's the offseason. But with the way the Packers are coming out and talking about it publicly like this, that tells me it's going to get done in the next 48 hours. Like, it's going to get done.
Well, you think it's
this
that
week.
quick, huh?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
I think the fact. Well, why would you even put it out? I mean, you have to put it out there because he's not going to be there at practice, and everyone's going to be like, what the hell is going on? But he's saying publicly they're close. I think it's something that's going to happen very quickly and erase all of these takes of like, he's not practicing, Packers stock going down. Like, yeah, I doubt it. He'll miss maybe a week of practice.
They tend to be a stingy organization when it comes to this stuff.
A little bit.
Yeah.
So. But they just paid Kenny Clark. That, to me, that's another sign. Like, they're just going in order. Like the Lions. Jared Goff was last on the list.
How old is Kenny Clark? Isn't he like? Oh, he's only
28. Yeah,
it feels like he's been around forever.
It's already his third contract at 28.
He's gonna be 29. So in a minute here. So, but yeah, that's I feel like he's been around forever.
Yeah, he just played at a really young age. Like, he's got Sewell disease, where just an absolute monster from the fact that when
Sewell's gonna have 4 contracts and he's gonna be 29.
Right. People excited about the Tigers in the chat. Are we back on the Tigers, Detroit? Are we excited? Do we think they got a shot at the playoffs? I'm asking you guys questions now. How's that for a mailbag? Scoop all day. Fair.
Hold on. I'll be right back.
Okay. I mean, he's got a 4-run lead now, so is it over? Is the game already over? Did I just jinx it? Listen, I haven't watched a Tigers game since I went to a game. They lost. It was close. They also had like an inside the park home run on the game I went to, but there was an error. I forgot who they were playing and who hit the almost home run. Anyways. Yeah, and I also don't have cable. I'm going to have to get cable in a minute here, because my digital antenna does not pick up Fox, and I'm kind of going to need Fox to watch some Lions football. What do you guys suggest? YouTube TV? Should I just get like Xfinity but only digital? You guys Hulu fans? The Hulu package is kind of tempting, where it's like Hulu, Live, Disney Plus, ESPN Plus. But most people don't seem to really like their streaming service. Fubo? Does Fubo give me local Fox? YouTube TV is just expensive. Don't be fooled by that package. All right, fair enough. Nah, I'm not doing the illegal stream stuff. I've had no good experiences with it. I'm terrified of putting a virus on my computer. It lags all the time. It's way behind the regular stream. I'm not doing the illegal stream stuff. It's just not my thing. Goof. That one's not illegal? Sorry, YouTube. I'm ignoring you again. Let me pull up YouTube. See if y'all got some takes. NFL Plus is good. I have NFL Plus. I get NFL Plus for free for being in Football Writers of America thingy. Just got back.
Sorry.
Is Erik taking
Sorry.
a dump or something? Is he a voluntary
No,
firefighter?
my 3-year-old was crying because she wanted to come in the front room to hang out, and I told her that
Oh.
we were about to hit the record button again. So yeah, sorry. When I'm in the garage, she can't see me, so it's no big deal. But she's she's just I don't know. She's 3. That's what
Jeez, 3.
happens. She'll be fine hanging with mom.
Um, Brent over on YouTube. That is a question that we're going to answer in the next segment. So you're ahead
Nice.
of things. Detroit Fan Man Inside the Den goes live at 8 p.m. today. As we were saying before, they've been billing it as kind of like an Amon Ra thing. So I don't think it's going to be the draft video that you're all excited about, that we're all excited about. I don't have any inside information there. It's just the way they've been advertising it. Since everyone gets most excited about that, I would think in your promo videos that's what you would be advertising. So I would not expect it to be the draft episode of Inside the Den.
Last year, when we talked to Derek, he was like running himself ragged, trying to get that long hour and a half done before camp, and he was like talking about like the late nights that they had, and like it was a hard path to try and get that thing done. And so it wouldn't surprise me at all if they eased him
and I
eased
know
it off on him a little bit.
And they've made some changes, I think, with their production staff a little bit here and there, and plus, like, I know a lot of them use the last month to take time off because it's the only time they get off. So
a
lot of people that think they've been twiddling their thumbs for the past month, it's not that. It's they're taking a vacation because they've been working for 11 months straight. With like, and you also have to understand, like, when I say working for 11 months straight, not talking about 5-day weeks. I'm talking about 7-day weeks.
At the same time, I do think if they want to stick with the pattern they have, they'll probably have like 2 weeks to like get it done because they're going to want to have like the preseason recaps and stuff like that they do.
Maybe,
so, if they stick with it. So I don't think it'll be long. At the same time, it might not be tonight.
Okay. I think it's time to get into the next segment, and I'm not sure I have all the questions. So if you're on Twitch or YouTube, continue to throw questions in, and we might include you in the podcast. Cool.
How many do we have? 2?
I think we only have 2.
All right.
So yeah, keep throwing in those questions, but let's get back to it. Welcome back to the Midweek Mailbag here on the Pride of Detroit podcast feed. We're back answering your questions, and let's go straight back to Twitter. As always, if you do have questions, add us on Twitter. Maybe throw the hashtag AskPOD, and I'll see it a little quicker. But our next question here comes from CJ92. Says, who are the players that are trade candidates for players currently on the roster? So much depth the team can lead us to cutting good players, so instead of cutting them, getting draft capital for them. Now, generally, I don't like speculating about trading players, but I think it's an interesting conversation to have a little bit, particularly after you and me spent, an hour, 90 minutes maybe on Zoom yesterday trying to figure out our 53-man roster and realizing we were going to have to cut some good players. Now, before we get into this, I also want to preface, most of these trades that we're probably about to talk about are like conditional 7ths. They're day 3 picks. They're late day 3 picks, unless you have someone else in mind.
Well, whenever I start considering trades, I tend to look at who's in the final year of their contract first, right?
Yep.
And so I think if we just kind of like go through we'll find the list maybe isn't as long as we want. And maybe this will just be a jumping off point, but like, let's just real quick.
Yeah.
Top of the list in the contract year, Taylor Decker. They're not trading him.
Yep.
Zeitler, they just paid. Carlton Davis, they just paid. John Kaminsky. All right. He might be the first guy. He has a higher. He's making over 4 million. Um, Teams have been interested in him in the past.
True.
He is a reliable, dependable defensive lineman. And the only way I think they would move on from him is all of a sudden if it's like, oh, look, Pascal elevated his game. Oh, Davenport's healthy. Oh, look, Betts is better than we thought. And Houston all of a sudden has learned how to cover as well as pass rush.
Sure.
You need a lot of things to happen, I think, in order for Kaminsky to be on that block. But he's a reserve that's making top 13. He's the 13th highest paid player on the roster this year.
Yeah.
And he's in the final year of his contract. Did take a pay cut. And as I wrote up in our 53-man projection article this morning, when a player takes a pay cut, the team is usually asking them to take a pay cut because they have a plan for that player in
Right.
mind. And so I do think they have an agenda for him. But high contract, final year, reserve, those are all things that say, man, maybe you're vulnerable. Agree with that?
Yeah, I think a little bit. The question to me would be demand over a guy like Kaminsky because, yes, people were interested in him 2 years ago, 3 years ago.
2. Yeah.
He's getting a little up there in age. And to me, like, the value of Kaminsky would be most for a team that's super competitive right now. Like, if you're a young team rebuilding, you don't want a John Kaminsky. But if you're a team that, like, needs veterans that have been there before that can play, he's good depth.
Yep.
Which means he's probably most valuable to a team like the Lions, which is like,
the Lions. Yeah.
Okay, so why would they trade him? Why, if
Right.
they're trading him, they're trading him to a contender. Why would they do that? Like,
Kind of like 49ers, Ravens types of
Right.
like teams. Like
Right.
those are the team. Like, and so, yeah, I think he's valuable. I don't think he's on the block. Like, I don't think he's a guy that would be traded.
The other category of players that maybe fall into this topic are young players, almost like a Starling Thomas, but I think the Lions would almost rather, if they know they're going to cut this guy, he's a developmental guy, they would have loved to keep him, but there's no room. I think they would probably rather risk just putting them on waivers and hoping they get him back on their practice squad rather than trading them for a 7th-round pick.
well, that's what they did with Starling, right? Essentially, I think they were trying to get him back.
Could they have theoretically traded him for a conditional 7th? Maybe.
Probably, yeah.
And they probably would have met those conditions because Starling played a heck of a lot of football for the Cardinals last year. But
It's because he's good.
I think like that's a conundrum, right? Like, this guy is maybe good enough to eventually be a guy in your 53 or a guy that you want on your practice squad, and you want to develop him, but you also have a really strong feeling that once he's on waivers, he's gone. So what do you do there? Do you roll the dice and hope that you can bring him back, or do you say, we know he's long gone, let's just see if anyone's willing to trade for him? Or if you're a team that wants a Starling Thomas, do you even approach them about a trade? Be like, listen, no, we're second in priority. We're going to get this guy.
I think the two guys that kind of fit that scenario are Stephen Gilmore,
Yep.
the guy who beat Starling,
Yep.
and James Houston.
Yeah. Houston's an interesting one.
Again, I think he's very valuable to the Lions, but if all of a sudden Betts plays out of his mind and Houston doesn't take another step and Houston isn't fitting what they want and they're getting that out of Derek Barnes and they're like, man, Houston's on the bubble. And again, it sounds ridiculous, but
Right.
like because of what he did as a rookie. But there's teams that are going to look at that and say, I can do it. I can take him to a different spot, or I like exactly what he does and that's enough. Whereas the Lions are looking for more. Again, I don't know. I don't think Houston's going to be on the trade block, but I think he fits in the parameters of what we're talking about here.
Yeah.
Let me just blow through a couple more and
Sure.
see. Noah Nalim. People like to talk about Derek Barnes being on trade block.
Yeah.
I don't see it.
I don't either.
I don't see it. I think they like him as a potential starter. I think he's more likely to get an extension than to get traded by the end of training camp.
I think
That's my opinion.
Ooh. Extension is a tough one for me, but I think you're right. Like I think they think he's valuable, and I think maybe they would. If I were the Lions, I'd want to see how he does maybe full time in a Sam linebacker role or something before I go reaching for the pocketbook.
Right, but I guess that's my point. Is I think he's closer to. I don't think either happened.
Correct. Okay.
I think he's closer to getting kept.
That's fair.
I think Levi's not tradable because of his injury history.
Levi was one I was thinking about. Whereas he might get cut this offseason, so maybe you trade him and you hope someone sees former second round pick, but it's not like they're going to ignore his injury history and be like, yeah, I'll trade a 5th round pick. No, like Levi probably still doesn't have the trade capital, even though from a Lions point of view, it might make sense to trade him.
The rest of these guys are either reserves, bubble players, or guys that they just signed to 1-year deals, except Ife Melifonwu. And again, I think the depth at safety says no, right? Like, and I know there's talk about Branch, if Branch goes to the back, it might be Iffy that comes down or comes to the bench. But again, I think they didn't acquire a safety in free agency because this was their crew, right? Yeah. So I envision Iffy in the same breath as Derek Barnes here, where it's a 4th-year player that was handpicked for this team by this staff, and he's playing at a starter level, and I don't think the price would be worth the toss. So
James Mitchell,
5 guys, maybe, but I don't know if he's.
That's another conditional.
I don't know if you can get a 7 for him. Yeah, right. Like you're talking James Mitchell and Gilmore.
The Lions trading anyone away for anything more than a 5th round pick is not going to happen. These are the kind your Trinity Benson trades. That's the kind of trade we're looking at here. And so James Mitchell, I think, is a potential guy. I still think I'm not ready to give up on him or anything, but I just got done talking about how I think the Lions tight end depth is a little bit better than people give it credit for. And so if, let's say they like Shane Zylstra as tight end 3 more and they like one of their other guys as a fullback / special teamer, I could see James Mitchell being on the way out. And if that's the case, see if you can get a conditional 7th for him.
I'll give you one that's going to make me look foolish.
Ooh, okay. I love it.
I'm openly admitting that this is probably going to make me look foolish. But
say Hendon Hooker.
There's this. No, come on. That's no, come on. No, I can see a scenario in which Antoine Green wins wide receiver 3.
Okay.
Khalif is number 4.
Sure.
And then all of a sudden, a guy you're not expecting, like Darius Fountain, all of a sudden steps up. Sure. And Donovan Peoples-Jones becomes tradable. Because he is I don't think it will happen, but I think he's a name enough that teams would be interested in him.
Yeah.
In the same way they'd be interested in Gilmore because Gilmore made the team last year. But you know what I'm saying? So it could make me look dumb because he could do the starting job and he could be wide receiver 3. But if he doesn't, he's 1 player away from being on the bubble.
Yeah, no, I don't think that's a ridiculous thing to say. His name kind of came across my mind. I don't know about the value that people would have in him, but again, we're talking late round picks, conditional late round picks. So, all right. Next question here from Twitter. I don't know how to pronounce this name, but it's FHEKSHDJ. Asks, who's your week 1 starting secondary? And by week 18, who's starting? Which new addition to the Lions team are you most excited to see? So let's start with the secondary. We talked about the defensive line. We talked about the linebackers. Let's back it up. I mean, this is one of the tougher questions to answer because, as Dan Campbell said in the spring, he had no idea who the starting lineup is going to be. So let's take our best crack at it. And I think we're probably both in agreement at outside corner right now that it's essentially Carlton Davis and Terrion Arnold's jobs to lose.
Yep, I'm with you.
Okay.
Brian Branch in the nickel.
Assuming he stays there.
Yeah, I think he's too good to not play there. like to move him all the way off the ball like that is counterintuitive to like
Yeah.
what he does well. And they keep talking about using him in a way that they use CJGJ
Right.
and how they developed him. And if you look back at his career, he wasn't a free safety like for extended periods of time until year 4.
Right.
So like he started getting some exposure, but like he was still nickel for the first 3 years of his career.
And he was
because
nickel when he
that's
came to
was
Detroit,
really good.
right? Like he was going to play the nickel here.
He went back, right? Exactly. And so again, this is everything Branch does well. Everything they talk about the way they want to use him. Every time they talk about his career arc, he's going to play nickel.
Yeah.
And so yes, he's their starting nickel. Kirby and Iffy, starting safeties. There's your 5, right? I think
Sure.
we both agree with that. Okay. Now, the hard part is predicting week 18 is, in my mind, the only way one of those 5 guys is losing their spot is if there's an injury. So,
Right.
like, I don't think, like, I'm not of the mindset that all of a sudden Rakestraw is going to come on and overtake Carlton Davis
Sure.
for a starting job. I don't think that's in the plans for his development or really where he's at. So I think it could be, it should be, barring injury, it should be the same starting 5.
Well, let's expand this question a little bit to a different formation.
Okay.
So let's talk
Good.
dime. So let's say we're throwing
All right.
Brian Branch back to safety. Is Amik Robertson your number 1 nickel replacement for him?
Well, okay, if you're a nickel, but you want to be in a more coverage nickel, and you're saying let's put Iffy or Kirby on the bench, doesn't
Right.
matter which one,
Correct.
you're putting Branch back there,
Yeah.
then yeah, Robertson's in the nickel. If you want to go to dime where you're going with 6
Sure.
defensive backs, you can still keep Branch in the slot and put Amik in the other slot.
Right.
So like if you're talking 6 defensive backs,
Yes.
100%, 3 safeties, 3 corners, and let's rock. And that's not going to be unheard of, because
Sure.
I think if they're in third and double digits, you might see that.
Yeah.
Like 1 linebacker, 6 defensive backs,
Right.
right, and a 4-man front, and that's good luck. That's
Yeah.
going to be a hard
Lamar
thing to
Lamar
throw
Jackson isn't converting that 3rd and 27 with these defensive backs out there. Not to bring up
right.
old wounds here.
Right. So yeah, I think Amik is the
Yeah.
6th guy on in those sets.
My follow-up, though, week 18, do you think there's any chance that's Rakestraw?
Yeah, there's a chance.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
I'm going to be honest. Depending on opponent, there's a chance it's Rakestraw earlier than
Sure.
week 18 as well.
Okay.
Because Rakestraw's the thing that people forget about Rakestraw is that he hits, and
Yeah.
he in my write-ups of him that I wrote when we were like drafting him or scouting him, it was he likes to hit, and he likes to let you know he's the one who hit you, right? Like he had the same mentality that like I loved about like Witherspoon, right? A year ago, was that he liked to he might look smaller, but he wants you to know that the hit came from him. And that mentality is going to do real well on special teams, but it's going to do real well in the slot too, especially against a team that's maybe a little bit more physical. So,
But Amik does that too.
Yeah.
Monique has that same mindset.
he absolutely does. He has the I'm 6'4" and a 5'8" body,
Right.
right? But he's more cover. He's more of a cover corner, right?
Sure.
And so if you're playing a traditional team that has a quicker than fast slot guy, Amik is your guy. But if you're playing a team that uses more of like a big slot, I absolutely could see Rakestraw in there on that. And then it doesn't matter where that slot guy goes because you got Branch on the other side.
True. All right. Next question here comes from Thomas J. Hutchins live on our Twitch channel, which is a good reminder that we're recording these live on Twitch and YouTube. Asks, I've heard it say that Glasgow is moving to, quote, his more natural left guard position. 1, do you think that's accurate? 2, and how so? Is he still not being the swing center, so they may be more inclined to find a true backup center? A lot of questions there. Let's start with, do you believe that Graham Glasgow is best served on the left side?
Yeah, for two reasons. One, that was the first position he went to when he moved off of center in his career, and he spent a long time at left guard, learning and playing at that position before he shifted back into center when they drafted Frank Ragnow and played Frank at left,
Yep.
and then flopped him again, right?
Right.
Or right. So it also goes into the fact that the way that the Lions kind of prioritize the skill sets of
Yes.
their offensive line.
This is what I
The
was going to
left
ask you.
side,
You
yeah,
have kind of a theory as to the difference in skill sets that they want in left guard and right guard.
yep. The left side is your more technical, athletic side, whereas the right side is more of your bullies. And so the offensive line that they were planning on going with last year was Vaitai, who is a bully of a right guard, and Sewell is, he's all world everything, but he can be a absolute bully. Decker is not a bully. Decker is a technician, and Jonah was a technician,
Right.
and Jonah had more athleticism to do some movement. Graham is a lot more like Jonah, but because of Vaitai's injury, they had to put Graham on the right side out of necessity because they didn't want to move Jonah. Moving Graham back to that side is not only a position that he has played for multiple years, but it stylistically fits the things that he's good at: quick jump sets, movement, technical ability, as opposed to trying to overpower people. And so Graham, I think, is going to feel a lot more comfortable. His his two best friends in the entire world are Taylor Decker, who's on his left side, and Frank Ragnow, who is on his right. And there's something to be said to literally be playing in between your two best friends. So Glasgow was in a much better spot. And then who did they get to put on the right side? One of the biggest bullies at right guard in the whole league, right?
Yeah.
Like, they want to punish you on that right side. They want to beat you up and tear you apart. And then the left side, they just want to out technical you. Technically, oh God, that's a
Out
terrible
technique
phrasing.
them. We'll say.
Thank you. That's much better. The editing process there.
There you go.
And so, and then Frank again, like Sewell, Frank can do it all, which is why Frank's an all pro, just like Sewell's an all pro. And you can blend Frank wherever you want, and you do all kinds of things that you do with Frank that makes him great. But it fits. This is going to fit Graham, in my opinion, much better than where he played last year. Even though he had a tremendous season.
And to tackle the last part of the question, whether Graham is still the backup center, essentially, I'm almost certain the answer is yes. I think he obviously has the most experience about it in the group. Like, Michael Neese is a guy that would probably be third string, and then you have this trio of undrafted rookies, and I think a lot of people look at them doing that. They're going out and getting 3 undrafted rookie centers. Well, clearly they want a new backup center, and I think that's true for the long term. But I think those 3 guys are battling for 1 or 2 spots on the practice squad so that they can develop them and then, yes, eventually have a backup center that they trust on a level that, Graham's 32 now, right? Like, he's not going to be the team's backup center forever. He's not going to be here forever. He signed a 2-year deal, 3-year deal? I don't remember. Either way, he's not here long term. And so they are looking to build up that extra long-term center. Those UDFAs are not going to win a spot in the 53. They just aren't. Like, I'm sorry to burst your bubble. I don't care how much guaranteed money they got. I think any guaranteed money they got was like, hey, we're going to get you in camp. We're going to give you a lot of money. And we're hoping that when we cut you, you've fallen in love with us enough, or we've provided a pathway, a long-term pathway, that you see the vision that you're willing to stay here and sign to our practice squad rather than anyone else's practice squad. So Graham is still the backup
exactly
center.
I apologize.
No,
I was going to say it's the exact that strategy you're laying out is exactly what they've done the last 2 years. Highest paid player last year was Connor Galvin. Connor Galvin then stuck around the practice squad. He's competing for a spot now. The year before that, it was Obina Aze. Obina Aze was the highest paid guy. He stuck around in the practice squad for a year, and he had a chance to compete in year 2. So this is not a new strategy that the Lions take. The only real difference is, instead of just focusing on one guy with this, they've thrown the money at 3 guys and said, all 3 of you are going to get an equal shot because we want to see what's up. And we've seen that strategy at different points. Like, we have We have safeties and linebackers that all kind of look the same
Right.
in their body type and their mentality and their aggressiveness and the way they play downhill. And those things all translate to the new special teams rules. And we see, a couple slot receivers. We don't see a variety of different receivers at different spots. They're both, it's like this is where we want to add some depth. This is where we want to add some future. And we're just going to put a bunch of guys there and let throw a bunch of darts and see which ones stick and which ones give us the best score and can hang around. And that was their strategy with their UDFAs this year. And it makes sense. Graham will be your backup. You'll have Nice competing with these three guys. And your backup interior guys are probably going to be guards. You drafted
Yep.
Mahogany. Sorswell's got some experience. Coyote is a guy who was starting for them. I think started 3 or 4 games last year, including in the playoffs. Like those are your best reserves are probably going to be best at guard, which means push Graham inside the tackle or the center.
All right, last question before we get out of here comes from Red Fly here on Twitch as well. Says, does our new cornerback room increase our overall defense rank by at least 5 spots? How much is the overall D improved over the full season? I've had a couple questions like this asking, like, what are our defensive expectations this year? Are we expecting a top half defense? Are we expecting a top 10 defense? Are we expecting a top 5 defense? And it's hard to answer the question, and obviously depends which metric you go by. But I'm gonna plug Pride of Detroit Direct here because we just had a conversation with Aaron Schatz, the creator of DVOA. He works for FTN Network now, FTN Fantasy, I should say. And he pointed out to us in his almanac, it says we project the Lions to have a top 10 offense and a top 10 defense. And when I asked him about that, he reminded me of something that I completely forgot, which is the Lions finished 13th in defensive DVOA last year. And it's easy to forget that with the way the season ended. It's easy to forget that with the way the past defense ended. But they were not that bad of a defense to start the year. Then they kind of lost. They had some injuries in the secondary. They were trying to find safeties that they liked. They were trying to find corners that they like, and it all fell apart a little bit in terms of pass defense. Run defense was great all season, which is another thing to keep in mind. And so I don't know. Like, yeah, I think it's very like if you're talking about making the jumps from 13th to 8th in DVOA next year, I think that's possible. Do I think they're going to be a top 5 defense? I'm not quite there yet. And the reason why I asked this question too, because it's specifically directed at the defensive back room, and I know you have an article coming out on SB Nation pretty soon talking about how that defensive back room is kind of the crux to whether the Lions skyrocket to Super Bowl or maybe take a little bit of a step back this year.
Yeah, I do want to reiterate a couple of the points that you made. Like, there was a point where when you looked at overall DVOA, offensive DVOA, run offense, pass offense, defense, run defense, pass defense, the Lions were in the top 10 in every one of those categories
for a while. Yeah.
And they were the only team in the league that had every one of those sections in the top 10. And so, yes, the pass defense is, dropped, and that's what everyone saw. Teams obviously took advantage of that. But if you can right that ship and you get up to speed quick, then yeah, I mean, they can get right back to that spot again. And if they can get right back to that spot, you can start winning again and get 2 important games right off the bat. Got to win those 2 to stay, to keep that goal of 12, 13 games or whatever it is. But it's possible for them to hit it's possible for them to not only hit the peak of where they were last season, to maybe even excel past that. And but I think the difference is, and I'm trying to phrase this the right way, but I think the difference is there were some peaks and valleys last year especially with the secondary. But if they can consistently stay in the top 12 or even top 15, if they can consistently stay there instead of like having these, the spikes. That's going to set you up for success. That's how you're going to you're not going to go through a lull where you lose like 3 games in 4 weeks or something like that. Right. Like,
Yeah.
and I mean, look, that happens to every team. Look at the 49ers lost 3 games in a row,
Right.
mid-season, right? Like we're looking at that saying, my goodness, what's going on? And the Lions went through a little lull, but if you can stay consistent, you can avoid those lulls and put yourself in a good spot.
Yeah, the only thing I want to add is the point that you made in your article and that I've made, I think, previously, is it's just a matter of how quickly the cornerback room, the defensive back room clicks, right? The chemistry is so important between those. And the good news is that while there are a lot of new faces and shuffling around, mostly everybody in that room has been in this defense for a little bit. Obviously, Carlton Davis hasn't. Obviously, Terry and Arnold hasn't. But Brian Branch has. Emmanuel Mosley has. All your safeties have been here and know the system. So it's not so much a learning the system and acclimating to that. It's just acclimating to being around new players around you. And that doesn't always come right away. And so there might be some growing pains. There might be an early season lull when it comes to the pass defense. But the hope is that you have enough talent there now. You have enough guys that, I mean, maybe Terrion Arnold isn't ready to go right away, and maybe Emmanuel Mosley is, and maybe that's where you start because you trust those guys early, and you know these early games are going to matter against a team like the Rams, who are going to be a playoff contender. You don't want to lose that one at home. Could be a tiebreaker, could be a seed maker. It's important, and so it's just a matter of guys who they trust the most early in the season, who can carry the water until everyone feels comfortable, and then I think the sky's the limit with the defense. I really do.
Mm-hmm. Communication is huge because like in that split zone team, they're passing guys off at times, and if they go more man heavy, that's going to help them, which they have the bodies to do that now, right? But when they're in zone and they're passing guys off, they have to be able to communicate, and so the faster you get those outside spots set, the faster the communication happens, the faster you're feeling more comfortable with them.
All right. We did it. That is the end of our training camp preview midweek mailbag. Midweek mailbag is going to take a little bit of a break during during training camp and preseason. That's because we're going to be doing daily training camp recap episodes not live, I should say, videos that are going to be available on Pride of Detroit Direct exclusively. So if you want those pieces of media, those recaps, make sure you head over to prideofdetroit.com/subscribe. Type in the promo code podcast25. You get 25% off. That knocks the price down to just over $3 a month for a year subscription. Definitely worth your time. A lot of awesome exclusive interviews. A lot of me and Erik before or after games. You're going to get used to us during training camp, and we're going to have a brand new writer part of our newsletter this year that I'm really excited about too. But until then, I'm Jeremy. That's Erik. Appreciate you all watching. It's chaos. Be kind.
Recording stopped.
All right. There are 10 minutes until Inside the Den. I'm definitely sweating too much to do a watch party, but it's not Justin Rogers as much as I'd love to have Justin on the newsletter. And I guess technically now
it's a different OG.
It's true. It is an OG.
It is an OG.
And now that I think about it, like, he's not going to have any non-competes anymore. Like, he theoretically could write for our newsletter if we wanted him to.
Oh, Justin, sure.
Yeah. And if he wanted to. That's probably the more important thing. But we are not cashing in a Movember reward tonight. Shows Inside the Den starts at 9? I thought it was at 8.
8, I believe.
Let me look at their YouTube. Hit their YouTube. Live? Well, they don't even have a live thing set up yet. No.
Oh, really?
Justin is starting his own Substack. It's called Detroit
Lions Network.
Detroit Football Network? I think it's Detroit Football Network.
Oh, football. I already messed it up.
You can go there, DetroitFootball.net. Oh, look, he's already got a new article up. He put up a new article 2 hours ago. I didn't see it. Mighty Tuati has a link. How come I didn't see it? It says premieres in 7 minutes, so they're going to be live in 7 minutes. So I will answer any questions you guys have for the next 7 minutes. Then I'm going to hop off, and I'm just going to watch Inside the Den separate because I'm sweaty, I'm tired, I'm hungry. And we did 4 hours of streaming yesterday, so another 2 hours is good enough. Any thoughts on why the Lions are sitting on so much cap space? That's a good question.
Gives them extensions options for next year. Derek Barnes, Iffy, Aleem, all guys that they're going to want flexibility with for potential contract extensions. Also gives you money to go back into free agency. Plus, it gets to a point where if you have cap space and you can roll over, it becomes like it starts paying for itself at some point, right? You also have the way that some of their contracts are structured; those are going to go up a little bit more, so you want to have a little bit about that as well. And so it makes sense to have as much available as you can because you can stack that and then become very flexible.
And this team, maybe more so than previous regimes, I think really values having a rainy day fund during the season in case of injury. We've seen them carry a significant amount, maybe more. I mean, not as much as they're carrying now typically, but enough.
A couple years ago, they needed it was like 15 or 18 just for IR stuff.
Right. They got so screwed.
Way above average.
I forgot about that.
They had to restructure all the Vaitai. They restructure Decker. It wasn't as much the next season or the season after. And so their injuries are getting more under control where they're not having to send the guys to IR, but you also have very flexible rules when sending guys to IR now as far as bringing them back. And so, but he got burned in Mahomes got burned in year one. And so he wants to keep a little cat. Yeah. He would keep some cash in his piggy bank.
Also really quick to be clear about Inside the Den, the YouTube link that Madi Tuati threw in the chat. The episode title is Inside the Den, Episode 2, Journey to Germany with wide receiver Amon-Ra St. Brown. So that's what the episode's going to be about. It's not going to be about the draft. But it should be cool. I think the timing is a little unfortunate with, being right on the heels of receiver. But listen, Amon-Ra's a superstar. He's going to get a lot of coverage. Which position groups are you personally interested in watching at training camp? Line play is always amongst the most fun. The intrigue, I think, this year is probably on the defensive side of the ball more so than the offensive line, right? It's the edges that we've been talking about forever. Mm. It's DJ Reader when he's out there. It's Broderick Martin.
Yeah. The trick is you're not going to learn anything for the first 3 days.
True.
So the first 3 days we're going to be focusing we'll look at the skill guys more. Pad, shells come on, it gets a little bit more intriguing inside. Pads come on, it's very intriguing inside. And so it'll change a little bit by day.
Yeah. We'll probably get a lot of 7-on-7s early, which means no offense and defense. Can they do 7-on-7s early? I think they can. I have to look at the rules, but
yeah, it's just I think the first practice is like an hour and a half.
Yeah, it's gonna be
it's gonna be
a little boring.
Yeah. I looked at I looked at some of my published times on some of my previous articles, and I want to say my first one, it was out very early.
Yeah, 2 p.m. and then everything else is 5 p.m.
I think it might even been earlier than that, to be honest, because I think we were done by 10:30 or something like that. It was I felt like it was a very early end. But then they get to add, like I said, when you were gone, I was talking about then they get to add 15 minutes on each day and eventually work their way up.
Some more questions about Jordan Love in the chat. how much do you think he signs for? Is he going to get more per year than Goff?
Yeah, I mean, that's the nature of the position, right? Like, if you're the next quarterback to sign will set the bar, and then the next one will set the bar again, and the next one will set the bar again. And I mean, if you're a starter and it is a unquestioned starter, that's basically kind of how it goes. He's young enough that I think he can command that kind of money. This isn't Daniel Jones we're talking about here that made 45. I mean, this is a guy a lot of people are talking about, like,
Yeah.
being,
It's the sample size thing that people are pushing back on, though, right?
but that's not his fault. He just has
Sure.
to say, look, you never gave me the opportunity. You gave me the opportunity. I ran with it. And
But you said the Packers can be stingy.
oh yeah, certainly, which is why I think it could delay a little bit.
No.
Not that much, but a little bit.
Nah.
Even if it's a week. You even said a week.
It
Even
could
if
happen
it's a
a
week.
Most weeks.
Yeah, that's a
At most.
maybe.
Which position coach are you going to be most interested in seeing at training camp? For me, it's Terrell Williams.
It's always.
Oh,
Really?
Well, yeah. I was a new guy.
All right, cool.
You're
I was
just
gonna
gonna
say you
hate.
are. No, I was gonna say you always like Calvin.
Oh,
Shepherd. Calvin's
Calvin's
like
great.
your
I love
spirit animal.
No
right?
question.
Like, you love him. Yeah,
No question.
Like,
But
yeah.
if you're talking about who am I more interested in seeing, it's Terrell Williams. Like, this guy is being billed as the best
The guy.
defensive line coach in football. And you know who could use a really good defensive line coach? The Detroit Lions. And so I
wonder
want to
how
see what his
much-
coaching style is like. I want to see progress being made.
I wonder how much his addition to the line helped increase people's projections, because not only were the Lions like defensive line or defensive front in like the top of shots rankings, but they were also in Warren Sharp's rankings too.
Right.
He had them up there, high up there as well.
Yeah.
And so I wonder if Williams, his role plays a factor in that. I'll say Townsend, because he's got this whole new unit.
Sure.
Deshae Townsend, the cornerbacks coach, or secondary coach, I guess it is. Or no, what is defensive backs, I think is what it officially is. But he's getting the position that was considered the weakest and got the most attention in the overhaul. So he's got a lot on his shoulders too. Both coaches that they hired have quite a bit of pressure.
Jim O'Neill too, the defensive assistant / safeties coach. He's tasked with Brian Branch, right?
Yeah, and he got experience with safeties too, which helps like guys like Brandon Joseph, who he coached in college.
True.
Yeah, so I mean, like his background is safeties as well. So,
all right,
it'll be interesting.
it's 8:00.
Is it starting?
Guys, go over to YouTube. Go watch the Detroit Lions Germany St. Brown episode. Go get entertained by that. We'll be back live next Sunday night to recap the first week of training camp. But as I said before, if you want more me and Erik content, we are going to start coming to Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, 4 days in a row. You'll get us. If you subscribe to Pride of Detroit Direct, go to pridedetroit.com/subscribe. Make sure you use that promo code podcast25 to get 25% off, bringing it down from $50 a year to $37.50. But until then.